The Underworld franchise is based on a visual lexicon that's set up and that is detailed and based on a lot of low angles and deep views of long sets and set dressing that's always been about the gadgets and the props and the set dressing and the keys going into all the slots and all the neat little genre things. 3D, you know, is kind of a no-brainer for that kind of thing.
There's a shot in the picture, it's when Celine throws the grenade pin toward Quinn that we shot at 120 frames a second in 3D. Such a heroic moment in the movie. It's when Kate reveals basically how she's going to kill Quinn. And to do it at that kind of high frame rate gives it a drama that if we'd shot at 72, would not necessarily have been there. So that's why it was important to us, at least to try to get to 120 frames per second, and that Red could accommodate our request was great. So hopefully that moment now has a bit more resonance than it might have otherwise had.
For the finale of Underworld, we asked Red to give us a build that would allow us to shoot at 120 frames a second in 3D. You know, until this point, it was only 72 frames, and they sent us what is in essence a pre-alpha build of the firmware that allows us to shoot 120 frames a second, which is what these cameras can do. This is the first time these cameras are going to be used. This is you're witnessing a little bit of Red history here.
Oh, great. Okay, let's go one more time. And India, go!
With the combination of the new Red Epix cameras, the cinematographer Scott Keevan, the production designer Claude Perret, Len Weissman's initial vision, and a very studious sort of attention to 3D, I think we've created a very beautiful 3D movie. And that's what Måns and Björn also aspired to, a beautiful 3D movie.
3D is just another tool. Like Steadicam, you learn how to use it to enhance the experience for the audience.
We have some brand new cameras that haven't been used on any other 3D projects ever, which are so incredibly detailed. So which brings something you haven't seen in any other 3D movie before, which is a detail which takes away some of the problems at least I've had with earlier 3D films.
One of the big requirements of the picture is to build a new city. So to build the backgrounds that we're going to need, as opposed to sort of just relying on artists to interpret what a new city should look like, we're going to incorporate LiDAR scanning into the process.
Well, the LiDAR system is basically a laser that rotates really, really fast to get a lot of points in the world, and it gets a 3D model of the world, and it really helps when you're doing visual effects because basically it eases the transition from the real world to the virtual world.
And we can take then this data back into workstations and have a very accurate representation of what the building's architecture was. And from there then we can manipulate them to make hopefully photoreal backgrounds throughout the city.
When you're working with 3D, you can't fake as much because there's actual depth perception. So things like this really ease the process because you can match it and you can use it to create a stereo view.
It's a way of taking what's here practically, then manipulating it in post to do something that is unique for Underworld.
No, please! The biggest benefits for the fans of Underworld is definitely they can first time be in the world of Underworld. They can be part of it and they can feel that they are being inside the Underworld.
These brand new cameras and Element Technica rigs allowed us to shoot the entire film in 3D, and shooting in 3D, it just looks better.
There's a perception that it's so difficult to shoot in stereo that you want to convert just to make your life easier. And that the cost, you know, even though the cost of conversion is not inexpensive, it ultimately is cheaper to convert as opposed to shooting. And I can tell you, having gone through this movie, that's not the case. The post pipeline, which people are always concerned about, was not a big deal at all. The issues that people have encountered in the past about you know, eyes not matching or being misaligned and causing, you know, pain for the audience, we had very little of that.
There is a natural binocular thing that happens in your brain when you're looking at something that is actually shot properly in stereoscopic 3D. Your brain can tell the difference.
When you shoot 3D, you just know that it's all correct, and that what you are presenting to the audience was exactly how the environment or the location, the set looked in reality. So having that kind of confidence in what you're presenting is really, I think, the great advantage to shooting 3D as opposed to converting. The big transformation when Quinn goes from human to uber-lichen, we really at the end wanted the uber to come out of the screen in ways we had not done before. That was a moment where we said, okay, we're going to watch this shot go on for 20 seconds or something. Let's finish it up with the creature coming out as far as anything comes out in the entire picture to hopefully give a split second of thrill to the audience. So trying to design so that we use the stereo, use it sparingly, conservatively, but when we go for it, really make something of it. Len wanted to have an Uber in Underworld 2, and the budget didn't support it, and in many ways the technology didn't support it. So, when the opportunity came up here to do something bigger than a normal lichen, obviously it was a challenge that had been sort of sitting out there for a while, and we all jumped on it.
I wanted William to actually have the scale. So that's where it kind of originated, and it was going to be a practical suit, and that's one of the reasons why it didn't work out, is that at that time I couldn't figure out exactly how to do the half practical part of it with bits of CG in it, and so it got too expensive.
The scale of it was a tricky discussion, but until we got into post and started putting the 12-foot creature in these environments and interacting with Kate, it was sort of nail-biting territory. And then when we actually finally saw them interacting, it seemed to work just fine. But for a while there, it was just we were sort of on a wing and a prayer, hoping that size would work okay. And that it would be big enough to be scary and ominous and really to be the first opponent that Celine's come up against that really was worthy of her in some ways, but not be so ridiculously large that you would just chuckle at her fighting something so gigantic.
It shoots at 120 frames a second, which in 3D should be absolutely spectacular. The shot where Jacob's going to be thrown back by Eve. The idea is he's going to start transforming in midair, and the extra frame rate is going to make that, again, truly spectacular.
When the viewer is watching 3D, there's also like the psychophysical fact involved, since it's received as the same way as we receive the world around us in our real life. Your visual system and your body is sending signals for your brain and for the other parts of the body that when you look in 3D image, you're actually doing the same kind of processes with your visual system than in a real life. The whole kind of sense what they are looking, it's felt like realistic, which involves them in the story and connects them, and that's how they are emotionally more connected to the story and to the characters. We should use that to tell the story and place our action and also in the production design to really utilize the depth dimension in it. This is something that I've been encouraging to people, production design and cinematographer and director and everybody to kind of consider and switch their head in a 3D thinking.
We didn't want to do a futuristic look. It's 13 years later, but later from what? So that's what we said. Let's not go into spaceships and all that stuff. Let's keep it pretty clean.
We always talked about the new world and the old world. So the old world being the old Eastern European style and this as the new world.
I don't recognize this world.
And that has been challenging because then we didn't have anything to rely upon because we're moving into a new world. This was what was very attractive to us because then we could explore new ways, but we always wanted to have that underworld stamp on it.
And we found the concept of brutalism, which is derived from when architecture is very functional and very boxy and blocky, and it kind of fit in because we had the world that has been set up in the first film is, it was shot in Eastern Europe, so a lot of that Gothic structures there, but it's next door, so you have all these kind of brutalistic buildings as well. So it kind of felt like, well, if we just move the camera over there, that's what we would see.
We had shot the first movie in Budapest, the second movie in Vancouver, the third movie in Auckland, New Zealand, and there was a familiarity with Vancouver, so we decided to go back to a city that we knew and had a good experience. And Vancouver was terrific.
We're rolling. Guys, again, watch yourselves on the left side of the frame.
Vancouver has a skyline that worked for us in a downtown metro area that we use to a fair extent, but it was the crew, it was the proximity to LA, it was, of course, the aesthetic and the brutalistic locations.
In this city, there's lots of buildings that were built by Arthur Erickson, and we were fortunate enough to be able to benefit the look of these buildings. So we created a civic environment that's very different than the past films that were shot in Eastern Europe countries, which are much more historical looking, you know, and much older city look.
On Underworld 4, there's also more set construction than we'd done on Underworld 2 or Underworld 1. We built the Vampire Coven, we built pretty much all of the interior of Antigen, and there was a lot of those. And Vancouver has a number of soundstage facilities that allowed us to spread out and build all of these sets. We also wanted a location that could serve the dystopian vision for the future that this film represented. Muntz and Bjorn have spoken about brutalism, this style of architecture. It's actually a recognized style of very heavy, concrete, somewhat depressing, always seems to be wet and foreboding. And you can find a good bit of that in Vancouver.
The most notable being Simon Fraser University, which actually is quite a beautiful campus in its own way, but it's in this sort of 70s style of poured cement and very stark graphic angles to the architecture. So that is the headquarters of Antigen, the evil corporation that has spawned these nasty creatures that have been visiting the world.
There's your cue.
Copy! Although it was perhaps the more beautiful element of brutalism, it did have this very rectangular look, which we felt worked particularly well for 3D.
Antigen has some kind of science fiction kind of feel to it in the way we designed it and the way the atmosphere in these places. Although it's very harsh and square, it still has that underworld feel to it, I think. Antigen has that, we like to call it neo-Gothic feeling to it.
The first thing in 3D is to really dress the different planes of the box that you're trying to shoot, you know, to show. With this kind of architecture that we're dealing with in regards to the brutalistic look of it all, with the team of designers and illustrators, we came up with this very strong statement with the diagonal beams going up in the room. And we've decided that we would dress all kinds of cables going along these beams to the cryo tank, which is the centerpiece, the main piece of the room. And the glass, the frosted look in the glass also created a different plane, because then you have the frosted glass and then you have the subject hanging in the tank, and then another frosted pane of glass. And then all the background aspect of it all helped us really define a distinct look to the lab that I've not really seen in other movies before. I mean, you know, it's very difficult to create an original cryo tank in nowadays filmmaking, and I think that we came up with something that is pretty interesting.
Doing this film, you think about the fans, because we are the fans, you know. So you think about, you spend a lot of time deciding on the new guns. You spend a lot of time designing the perfect sword. You spend a lot of time of designing the bullets that she's loading the gun with. Yeah. Because we know, we love that shit. And we know that people are also like crazy about this.
All right, here we go. All right, on go. 3, 2, 1, go.
The Coven set it's been something that Claude has really managed what we wanted, and that was the big contrast between the world of man, which we wanted to be very square, but we wanted the vampire world to be old and to be sensual, and also to be round, because we wanted to have that female womb kind of feeling to it. And that's the theme in the film for Celine. So that contrast is great, because it's new and old. It's beautiful and it's brutalistic, and Claude really pulled that one off with those two different dimensions.
I really insisted that, you know, we make it much older, much more destroyed and aged and worn as in opposition to what was done in the previous films. And everything went pretty well with the vision, and I think that we'll come up with something that's renewing the genre and the franchise with this film. I'm glad to invite you to a tour of the Coven, which is part of the underworld. This place is an antique reproduction of what would be underground for about 1,000 years. There's lots of references to the Roman ancient city, and we sculpted all this stonework out of styrofoam. And like this table here is marble, but in fact it is styrofoam. All of this is obviously lots of work. It employed about 100 people for a few months to sculpt and to make all the timber look like it's part of trees that have been literally split and used as beams. All the fabrics and all the materials were new when we got them. So obviously there's lots of sculpting involved and aging on the ripping of the curtains. On this boardwalk here, we've purposely installed all the planking so that it's really crooked and it's all in the wrong angles and everything. For the performances, it's a little bit more complicated than a normal, like, you know, concrete surface, but for us, visually, it's stunningly realistic. So this part of the set is called the catacombs. Really, it's the basement of the Coven. So in here are all the archives, weapons, ammunitions, and costumes and relics that we are going to see when Celine walks around here and finds something that she's been looking for a while. Those were very extreme sets to conceptualize, and it was fun to make it. It was challenging for me to enter this kind of environment and dive into the subject and come up with something original. And I hope that we've achieved that.
Underworld has, all the films has what we like in movies. It has a mythology that is very strong. It deals with darkness, it deals with strong themes, love, death.
It's also been a good mix between performances and the visual part as well, because that's something we like.
It's a tough job to actually change it up and make it the same and familiar at the same time, because you're wanting to exist in a universe that still felt like Underworld. And so in terms of what makes it really different for me is the fact that there are humans involved, and it is something that it's really flipping it upside down at this point. It's something I always wanted to explore, and so that's really where it came from.
The movie is very true to the franchise, but what differentiates it in a big way is it's shot in 3D. We maintain the same color palette and style. It's a contemporary movie, very much like Underworld in terms of its beauty and its elegance, which is symbolic of Underworld.
Are we going back in?
We are.
And Born Again.
Underworld's great because it's had some of the best werewolves and vampires, that have been in cinema over the recent years, if not ever. And so it was a really great challenge to be given this mantle and say, can you guys achieve, what Patrick and team did prior to us? The Totopoulos group really raised the bar for makeup effects at that time. But, as technology develops and, artistic technique develops, you kind of need to keep going with it. It was kind of a good challenge for us to kind of go, hey, here's some artists that we really respect. Are we as good as them? And maybe can we, even push it a little further?
Here we go, everybody. Ready, and 3, 2, 1, action!
All of our work that has been done on the Lycans has been done in Vancouver by our Vancouver crew, which is another interesting accomplishment because our team here has done quite a few amazing things, but never this amount of stuff and never under this kind of crazy schedule. The overall materials of the Underworld 4 suits are more or less the same. I mean, they're foam latex suits. How we approach them We benefited from a lot of what Totopoulos and company had done before. We were fortunate that we know those guys really well, and some of those guys are actually some of our guys now, which is great. Mark Viniello, for instance, was their foam runner over there at Totopoulos for quite a few of those shows, and he's now our coordinator. So he stepped in to do the foam work on these suits. So it's actually Mark's same foam recipe, you know, maybe some slight improvements, but the way the suits were designed, the tricks that we were able to learn from Steve Wang and Patrick Totopoulos were really helpful. You don't make a werewolf suit every day, not even a company like ours. We make a lot of stuff, but we don't do it every day. And so each time you do this, you see new ways of improving things. Our team brought quite a few tricks of our own into the mix, and simple things, you know, like just subtly shifting the muscle mass, subtly designing how the suit fits the performer.
And how?
Once we finish it, we test it. We put it in front of the eyeballs of the lens, of the camera and the producers and everybody to see it through the one eye that really matters. One of the things that we noticed is the spectral, the shine that came off these things. A lot of creature movies, you want to just slime them up, and slimy's better, and it's usually kind of the monster maker mantra. But in this case, that shine came across a little artificial. And so we were really careful with the spectral and the glossing, but also the paint of it. We painted it a couple different times. It got a little lighter at time because the blacks really seemed to crunch down. So we wanted to bring it up a bit.
On go. 3, 2, 1, go.
The real trick on this stuff is being pushed by the medium. Just kind of looking at it in a slightly adjusted way because of the medium, because of these 3D magnifying lenses, really, I think, brought that out.
And you're going to come up, and then just once you get up there.
We don't really want to make good fake stuff. We want to make good real stuff, right? So we really wanted to make these things feel like beasts, like living, breathing beasts, not just really good fake beasts. And so that was kind of the mandate from the beginning. You know, it's like, don't sculpt clay, sculpt flesh. Don't make rubber move, make flesh move. You know, don't punch hair into rubber. Let's have hair growing out of skin. This medium, we're like we're filming with magnifying glasses. I mean, you see every detail. So not only did it need to be technologically improved, it needed to be aesthetically improved. We're still using the same designs. We're still painting them very similarly, but we've added detail. We've added like hair in the nose. We've added tear ducts and eyelashes and really subtle hair that hopefully will really show in this process.
Okay, good. Keep rolling, keep rolling. And then go back to position 1.
Our lichens are performed by Rich Citron, who's been around for a long time as a suit performer. He played William in number 2, and Dan Payne, who's our other suit performer. That was a real plus, having two guys that not only were of a great size for these characters, but had such great experience coming into it. We're cramming these guys into these thick foam rubber suits, and it's a magic trick. And if the performer inside doesn't work with all of us on the outside, you know, not just cosmetically, but operating the features and performing the face, the magic trick is, you know, much dimmer.
Hi, my name's Dan Payne, and I play one of the lichens on Underworld 4.
It's quite a challenge, not just performance, but just being able to last. I mean, it's 12, 14-hour days in foam rubber, hot lights, you know, people yelling at you with motors going on inside your head.
So what we're doing right now is we're pulling on internal tags, just so Dan doesn't rip the suit. They're just kind of inlaid here. Dan has sewed them in. It helps with the wear and tear.
Shimmy, twist out.
And now the important thing is just to make sure everything lines up.
Does that need to go higher?
Does it feel like it needs a twist out?
No.
And we really rely on Dan a whole lot here because he's been in the suit a bunch of times. He knows what fits.
It's pretty amazing that the transfer of my body to this suit, it's, I mean, it's like, hey, you don't want to miss this. Awkward. A lot of people bug me about my lack of manscaping. Nothing like a lichen with trainers. Sport lichen.
You know, as you can see with this, the one-piece foam suit, kind of underlaid with fabric. It helps us pull it on. These are separate gloves, and now we're just getting the head going. It's a skull cap with a camera mount rig, and we're just about to put the animatronic head on. And yeah, it all goes on in about half an hour. It's a real quick process.
The animatronics and the heads of the Lycans were adapted a little bit for a couple reasons. Mainly, it was schedule and budget and trying to lessen the amount of puppeteers that were on set. So we went to our amazing animatronics guy, Richard Darwin, and said, hey Richard, this is, not only do we want to do that, but we want to make the heads lighter, we want the mouth to open wider, and a bunch of other behind-the-scenes little features that would help us. You know, can you do all this craziness? And Richard, just quite the pro, he said, absolutely, and did that and more. We have 2 hero heads that the jaws will just open forever, and you know, we wanted them big enough to be able to chomp on some of the shoulders. They're very fast, very responsive, and it wasn't really part of the budget, but we really kind of needed to add some more animation, so we added these snarls into it. Richard and company really took it to task and made these wonderful, lightweight, extremely strong animatronic understructures that are all servo-controlled, all self-contained. There's one puppeteer on the outside who operates the jaw and the snarl and also acts as a communicator to the person on the inside listening to little headphones.
Cut! Nice, cut. Nice.
We sculpted the characters in a slight pissed off expression because there's not too many times Lycans are happy and dancing through tulips.
There's one puppeteer per Lycan. It's an up and down jaw mechanism with upper lip movement. We decided, just for the sake of efficiency, to kind of scale down the animatronics. Yeah. Previous films had ear movement, eye movement, and they just found that there was so much kind of VisFX enhancement anyway after the fact that just one puppeteer, one kind of simple, clean mechanism was a better way to go. It means there's more, you know, space inside the head, and so what we've been able to create with this, what Richard was able to do, was really, really powerful, good, fast jaw movement, which is something that's a little different and really, really effective.
There's definitely a learning curve of what I'm doing inside translating to the outside. You know, I might think I'm doing something that looks, in my mind, like a nice, you know, powerful pose, but then when Nicholas and the rest of, we've been filming it so I can see what it looks like when I feel it inside, I can know what it looks like outside. So I guess transferring what I'm doing to the suit, it's not difficult. That was actually kind of fun and a good challenge. The most just pure challenging part of it is trying to be a confident, powerful creature on stilts.
So the last piece of the whole puzzle are the stilts. These guys, I think, which strap on the outside, give them an extra foot, and they're converted kind of painter or, you know, drywall attacher stilts. So get to see those later on today. That's the last piece of the puzzle.
Those were Lycans. Not extinct. More powerful than ever.
There is more action, stunts, car chases in this film. This stuff all costs money, so once you have more money, you can do more of that. Brad isn't just setting up stunts, he's setting up shots and setting up shots that go into sequences. So on Underworld 4, he shot big chunks of the movie, not just this explosion or that person jumping out the window or somebody running down the street.
Michael!
Great, perfect.
Måns and Bjorn definitely have their vision for the movie, which is a great vision.
It's either elegant.
It's fine with the sound effects.
Oh, working with Brad, it's no like ours and his. He comes up with something. Or he comes to us and say, I think this scene should be this and this. and he shows us this fantastic little previews he's done with these people. Or it could be that we designed some shots completely with storyboards, and we tell him, what do you think? And he says, this works, this works, this works, and maybe you should do this. So it's a total collaboration.
As far as prep time goes, obviously you never have enough. But we were given 10 weeks on this, which is what we had on the first Underworld. And there were a couple things that we needed to do some R&D on, the research and design of it all. Can we just keep going?
Can we keep the fire going?
Yeah. What I bring to the table is definitely my experience through the previous Underworlds and knowing how that action was set and knowing how Celine performs her action or what kind of person she is and how she deals with action on her level.
A, because he knows Kate, and there's a level of trust there. B, he knows Len, and there's a level of trust there. And C, he knows Underworld as well as any of us do. And D, he's a naturally talented person at putting together action sequences. He ended up being the absolute perfect choice to do that on Underworld 4.
I wasn't physically confident before the first one, so it was a real kind of personal test and revolution for me going through all that training the first time, where I really had to be taught how to run and how to throw a punch, and I'd never held a gun in my life, and it was terrifying, especially because we didn't have very much money, and you know, you'd get one shot at blowing up a subway.
Action, Kate.
She's still game to try stuff, and to be able to have her go to Brad and know, okay, we've done this before, Len trusts you, I trust you, that saves a lot of time.
Once you find somebody that you know speaks your language, knows what you want from a design, shot, whatever it is, what the mood that you're trying to create within the action, it's so valuable to have that. So the thing that comes to my mind first is a trust for what he'll bring and provide to the action.
Hey!
The thing about Kate, actually her retention is ridiculously good. It's been 10 years since she's really trained. She brings the attitude to it. She gets right in there and she's great. She's awesome.
1, go.
He had her confidence in terms of asking her to perform athletic moves that she wouldn't always, necessarily feel comfortable doing. So a lot of the stunts Kate performed on her own because Brad made her feel comfortable.
The thing that I have with Kate is that I'm able to talk to her in the way that she interprets it in her head to make her perform the way she needs to.
Brad will perform it, and then she picks it up like it's a dance routine. And some of these things just come natural to her, which is funny because it's so completely opposite of Kate's personality. She doesn't blink when she shoots, which is very difficult to do, especially if you're shooting slow motion. It screws you up. You can't use the shot. You have this great, it's just right in the lens, and then you just got a person going like this the whole time, and you can't use it. She's very good at that, very good with guns. And so these things strangely come natural. Personally, where I can see where she's evolved as specifically like the action star, I guess, is the comfort and confidence to really kind of like, bare her fangs in a sense, like really dive into it. The grunts, the aggression.
I think I still retain a little bit of that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm completely out of my depth, I don't know what I'm doing. And yet, because I know this character very well and I'm very comfortable, and I have been trained really well by, Brad and his team. Brad has choreographed a lot of the action to make the most of it being 3D. I do the thing and then afterwards go, wow, that's so cool, maybe the whole leg kick.
The way that the stunts are set up, and again, the Brad Martin of it all. The stunts speak to like the 3D world. I mean, there's a lot of depth and there's a lot of coming into foreground and leaving again. And the guns and the bullets flying.
This is when they're gonna cut in.
Yeah.
All the
spikes going out, yeah.
Funny.
Throwing stars at, yeah.
There are moments when you see Celine fighting off all these security guards and shooting them, doing all sorts of moves. That's all Brad. So he did a great job.
Biggest problem that I have with 3D, and this is the one thing that we couldn't disprove, is when you pan from one object to another or follow something going by at a relatively quick speed, which is somewhere between a whip pan, which is super fast, and then just like following somebody walking. That medium speed pan right there creates this ghosting image in 3D, and it looks quite weird on the eye, and it's very hard to watch. And very often we have to find ourselves finding another way around the shot to prevent that ghosting from happening. Since we're shooting with 2 cameras, when we shoot action that has to do with wire work, say for instance, and a guy's jumping up and we're pulling him by a wire, now they have 2 different images that they have to erase the wires from, so it's double the work.
You'll see Celine jumping over fences, you'll see her making great leaps, you'll see her doing this cool move where she suddenly moves and then she's somewhere else. A lot of that's done with wire work. You'll see her do that in this film way more than you did before. The amount of wire work that we've done on Underworld 4 is the most I've ever done on any film.
3, 2, 1.
Got it. Got it! The beginning of the pier is that Celine comes in and she jumps over the fence and lands on the inside of the fence, and we were going to do that all with Kate. It was actually a 3D thing of locking off the camera and doing 2 different takes of something. We weren't able to do that with Kate on both shots, so we did what we call a Texas switch, which is we have her stunt double in the back, and she jumps up out of frame, and then Kate lands in the foreground. That was a fun little beat of action that we did, and it worked out really well. It was all fun. It's always fun when you get guys shooting guns and bullet hits and people diving and ducking and explosions.
We had tremendous fortune in him playing an active directorial part in terms of directing the second unit action sequences on the film.
It's a bit like riding a bike, so I sort of assume I won't be able to do it and then find like, oh, actually, I just ran off a wall, you know. And that's been really fun. And again, because we've all known each other a long time, that works really smoothly. And so I sort of look forward to it now.
In the first movie, it was Len Wiseman, who was a young director, directing a young actress, Kate Beckinsale, and it was a wonderful challenge in front of us. Kate certainly looks every bit as beautiful as she did when we did Underworld 1, so it was wonderful to have her on the set. She was a leader in this movie.
We were really obviously thrilled to have her back. Always hoped that she'd come back. She's Celine. She's the heart and soul of Underworld, really.
I'd been talking to her about it for a while, and we'd kind of flirted with the idea for a couple of years. And so it was great. I really believe Kate is Underworld. And so it was really fun to have her back.
Set, 3, 2, 1, action!
Kate comes in, boom, she gets it in the first take. She so inhabits this character.
And Kate, just show us where you're gonna aim again. Mons, how's that? Wonderful. Here we go. Still rolling. Protect your ears. Ready and action.
You can switch into Celine like that. She can sit and giggle and like ha 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 ha, and then she has those guns up and she looks like she's gonna kill you, and she is there. Or she does the same thing and she cries, you know. So she has a highway into Celine. That is fantastic. As a director, to have someone that is so close to their character.
I'm not a leader.
But you fight for what you believe in. You always have.
I don't know what I believe in anymore. I don't recognize this world.
But you haven't changed.
It's exciting to be able to follow a character over such a long period of time. You know, it's rare to get that chance. There's some really great new characters, and I think there's some really great actors. I'm thrilled with the cast that we've got.
She's always been one of my favorite actresses, and I think it's great for the series to be reintroducing her back into the films. It's just been lovely working with Kate.
She's so embedded in the world. It has been useful with even little pointers when we're doing stuff, you know, remembering the history of it, remembering the limits of the vampires, what they can do and what they can't do.
You knew who I am, and yet you still brought me here.
Very cool to have a fellow Brit So we're making lots of shit jokes together.
3, 2, 1, go! Oh! Take me there! Take me all the way!
What startled me the most was, you know, in our first scene together, she could transform into Celine without thinking about it, without any kind of preparation. It was just fascinating to watch.
I'm not good with feelings.
She had such an evil stare that I told her, I said, I hope I never get on your bad side, you know, because I don't want that look.
Who knows how many lichens are going to be hiding in there? The second you step foot inside, you're going to be surrounded.
I'm hoping so.
I do feel very proud of the fact that, you know, there aren't very many female-led franchises and movies even that really legitimately work without being kind of deliberately titillating or objectifying the woman.
This day was bound to come, with or without us.
It's done with a certain tone and doesn't play up too much on the flirtation of the fact that it is this, you know, beautiful woman that is handling all of the action.
We had a wonderful experience when we first met Richard Wright, and he said, I have the Celine suit. And then he takes it out and it's just a plastic rag hanging on, you know, it looks like nothing. And
you need to see Kate
and then you see
for it to work.
Kate coming in, you know, filling it out, and it's something else.
I mean, personally, I find it insanely attractive. You know, I think that's no surprise.
I think any woman who wants to put on clothes that they wore a decade ago and then be photographed in exactly the same way, you can think, oh my God, this is such an awful thing to do. But actually, you know, it was a very life-changing role for me, you know, personally as well. So I feel very affectionate towards it.
There was a big span of time between the last movie and this movie, so we had to find and research to find the right fabric with the right stretch, the right shine, the right feel, make sure that the corset was fitted properly, so we bone it at the right place so she feels that she can move, and that she would feel, again, the death dealer and find her character intact.
Putting on the costume the first time was wild. Just the sound of it, you know, is very specific. The first movie I did, I was very intimidated by the costume, and I trust it now.
The first time I saw Kate in the costume, it was like, she's back! Here she is! And it is fabulous. It has a very strong sense of belonging, and because she inhabits that character with such strength, it was, here she was.
Len had always imagined that there would be a scenario where Celine and Michael, Scott Speedman, could have created a child, and so that became sort of the starting point with this movie.
We pick up initially, you know, right at the end of the second movie, and Celine and Michael are in some jeopardy, and then everything kind of goes a bit black.
There is a, dare I say it, humanity to her as a character that you haven't seen before.
We've been trying to push that theme a lot to make the motherhood affect the Celine character, which previously had been pretty untouchable. If you realize, you know, 13 years later you suddenly had a child you never knew about, then adding being a death dealer and a vampire, it just adds up to the complexity of it all.
It's hard to do an action movie with a woman in the lead because you can't just flip it like it's a guy. The fact that she's a woman is significant. I think that's what's great about this movie, is that she does become a mother.
I dreamt of the day we would meet.
Strong women.
Strong women.
We always end up there.
Yeah,
it's like we love them. But you know, one thing that I think is interesting with it is that female aggression is not as common as male aggression. So already there you have something that is kind of cool. And so that's one thing that makes it interesting.
She's pretty far from the girlfriend.
Yeah, she's pretty fucking far from the girlfriend.
So Celine is back to do her thing. And now she has a daughter who's actually more powerful than she is.
They're only here for her. She's more powerful than any of us. and they fear the day she discovers it.
We wanted to bring her out of her comfort zone, and this little girl really does it for her. She's out of control. I never seen Celine this emotional and vulnerable. Combine that with her aggressive behavior, create some interesting beats.
It's a nice combo.
You were subject one. I freed you. Do you not know who I am?
She had no idea that she had given birth because she had been captured and put in suspended animation. So she doesn't know that until she breaks free, and she doesn't understand that her daughter is the one that helped her escape.
She's softer, but she's also more violent, I think, because she's protective the way as a lioness is protecting her cub.
She's not a human. She is a vampire. She has existed in the life that she has and doing the kind of job that she has been doing. And so how would that kind of creature really deal with that realization? And at the same time that you are finding out that you have a daughter, your mindset on the only one that you have ever loved has been killed.
Celine's rougher in this movie than she's ever been, and she's still beautiful, but she is capable of greater violence.
A lot of shit has happened to her, and finally this is like the last straw, and she breaks out and is she's got the badass and everything in her, yes, but now has the vengeance behind it to really just say, fuck it, I'm done. And it has a little bit more of a violent approach to that.
I don't think motherhood particularly registers for her for a while. She certainly hasn't connected with her pregnancy or her baby or anything, and I think suddenly being presented with a child who's almost fully grown as a shock. I wouldn't say that she's sort of suddenly soft and maternal or anything, but certainly on some kind of instinctual level she's protective in a different sort of way than she's been before.
You're as cold as one already dead.
You can't delve too much into character and still be an action movie.
Yesterday, I was with your father. He was only a little further away from me than you are now.
But we skate into that dramatic territory way more in this film than we've done in any of the previous ones.
My heart is not cold. It's broken.
Those are pretty big, primal, emotional feelings.
She saves her daughter, and her daughter saves her.
You came back for me.
We have that to play with in the story without making her any less of a warrior, any less of a kind of badass.
I said I would.
What's interesting about Underworld 4 is that there are character moments that you hadn't seen in any of the previous films. In Underworld 3, you saw Lucian lose Sonia and the heartbreak of that and the revenge motive. But in Underworld 4, you see for the first time a certain amount of vulnerability in Celine.
We've opened up the movie to come out of just the underworld. It's in the world, and there's humans, and there's a whole different level of danger.
All the films has what we like in movies. It has a mythology that is very strong. It deals with darkness. It deals with strong themes, love, death, and it takes itself seriously, but there's so much cool shit and stuff in it.
We're taking another step, and it'll expand the universe instead of just digging deeper. We do have some lore, more classical stuff, but it's also taking that extra step into bringing something new to it.
It takes this thing to a new level of excitement and intrigue. It propels the Ike and vampire hybrid out into the future and amongst us.
The movie opens up the future of Underworlds by having a story that does not feel complete at the end of the movie. So I think that allows for future stories that are rather interesting.
I'm counting on it.
Martial law was declared 2 hours ago.
There's no cure. You're a fighter.
She's more powerful than any of us. What is it? Michael.
the movie opens up the future of Underworlds by having a story that does not feel complete at the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, you have Celine now united with her daughter and them joined together, and they're seeking to reconcile or to find Michael, who's disappeared. So you really feel that the franchise must go on from this point. The two characters that we've brought to the movie that are new are India Isley as Eve, her daughter, and Theo James plays David, a young vampire, who I've always sort of felt sort of Lancelot to Celine's Guinevere. He's intrigued with her, and I think he's also intrigued with her daughter.
I used to hear stories of the death dealers. That they were a thing of the past.
And this time we have Charles Dance, who's terrific, and Stephen Ray, Theo James, fantastic, Michael Ealy, and then India Isley, who came in and auditioned against a lot of the other actors.
Ready, action.
I think certainly that you're going to see prominent roles for Eve and David in future Underworld films, and I believe Thomas, played by Charles Dance, as well.
When you leave, take me with you.
In the original Underworlds, there was always a great fear that lichen blood and vampire blood would combine and create a child. Well, as it would happen in Underworld 4, Michael and Celine create this child. She is the combination.
Look at the eyes.
She has eyes that are half vampire and half lichen. She has the ability to transform never into a full lichen, but has the claws of a lichen, but the teeth of a vampire.
She's one of a kind, you know, in the story.
She is the last direct descendant of Alexander Corvinus, the only hybrid child that has ever existed.
The moment we met India, she has an exotic quality to her, and we also believe that she could credibly be Kate's daughter, you know, in terms of a look and a style and a ambiance and a beauty.
Look up. Pull back. Good, India, you're in the zone.
I turned to Gary Lucchese, who was behind me, and said, "This is the girl. We don't need to see the other one." And Gary, who's done like 60 movies, he says, "Yes, this is the girl." And we finished the audition there. Kate is married to Len, who is the creator of Underworld. He's director, great director. And anyway, Kate and Len was in Starbucks or somewhere, and Kate said, "Look, that looks like a little mini-me," she said, pointed at India. Len looks, sees her, and he's like, "Holy shit. That's the girl I saw on because we sent her the night before to him, say, what about this girl?" Yeah. And it's
what are the odds? What are the odds?
This is in LA, you know, how many people live there? 12 million. It's crazy.
Do you know her?
No.
Celine's kind of taken aback that she even has a child, and she's a bit disappointed that it's not Michael when she's looking for the hybrid. But it adds a completely different dimension to the film to have the mother-daughter situation and relationship.
What's your name?
Subject 2, and you were subject 1.
Subject 2, or Eve, is the last descendant of Alexander Corvinus, which we saw in part 2. And it's a way of keeping the mythology and the whole story of Underworld alive.
She has no origin bite marks.
Eve's not just a regular hybrid, she's a lichen vampire hybrid, so she's the first of her kind. And because her father Michael was a hybrid, she's a double pillar of strength, really.
We never mention her by name in this film. In this film, she is only called Subject 2, which I think is fantastic, because she's so sad that this person only have that name.
She's never stepped foot outside the lab. How can she possibly survive?
She's new to everything, and Eve's constantly experiencing these things all at the same time, but they're all things that she wasn't even aware existed. So she's still trying to process things throughout the entire film.
Those eyes look special. I know exactly what you are.
Charles Dance plays the elder vampire who's the head of one of the few remaining vampire covens that exist. And they've been in hiding, and they're no longer as wealthy and as powerful as vampires used to be. Charles is a very elegant, stentorian presence.
Do you think I'm foolish enough to take you at your word?
He feels the threat has become too great, really. And he has a strong sense of self-preservation.
Are you mad? We have no more than a handful of fighters. We will be annihilated.
It's something with his voice. I mean, he's tall as hell, so it's very imposing. But it's also his voice. I said, you can talk about pebbles and dirt, and I would still listen, because it's just one of those voices that you can say anything.
No, his presence is great.
Really?
Pay heed to me.
We meet Thomas in his coven. We're a threatened species, we vampires. And we have this place of sanctuary, and there is a general agreement that we don't bring strangers into it. I am quite paternal, although he does tend to annoy me rather a lot, and I shout at him a great deal. But I'm very unhappy when he shuffles off his immortal coil.
Our coven is destroyed. My son is dead.
But then, thankfully, Kate is around to revive him, and a nice cup of warm blood, and he's fine.
He has enormous respect for his father, but at the same time, he's frustrated that his father isn't responding.
What's your plan, Father?
David originally had a smaller role in the film, but we liked Theo James so much that we brought him back for the final scene. Originally, he was not supposed to be in the garage scene at all, but suddenly he shows up.
Get away from her!
He basically represents the younger vampires who believe that the only way that they can really truly survive is to revolt against the genocide of the humans. Whereas the oldest, his father and the older vampires, some of the older elite, have got to a place where they're running and hiding, and they think that their only way of survival is maybe, as they have done through the centuries, is to be subtle about it.
This is cowardice, plain and simple. How dare you? How dare you do so little?
He is rebellious because he knows that that's the only way of surviving.
We stand and we fight.
You knew the lichens were not extinct. How?
Just a feeling.
I'm not good with feelings.
When the movie opens, as far as Celine knows, and everybody else seems to think, that lichens are extinct.
Well, the government declared mission accomplished on all lichens. Feds announced that we were to only focus on your kind now.
Sebastian knows that that's not the case, and he and Celine, in their partnership, they mutually discover that Antigen is actually a place where they're not only breeding lichens, but they're breeding like uber lichens.
If you write about Antigen, who knows how many lichens are going to be hiding in there?
What really attracted me to the story was the fact that Detective Sebastian represents the human dynamic that has been, in my opinion, somewhat missing from some of the other films. A lot of the other films are dominated by the lifestyle of vampires and werewolves, and so this one we get a chance to see what it's like for a human to live amongst them.
Ready and action.
Antigen is the nemesis of the vampires in this movie, and it's run by this character Jacob, who's played by Stephen Ray, who's a mild but occasionally very, very angry bad guy, and he has a son named Quint.
Everything's worked out, just as we'd hoped. You're the first proof of it.
Dr. Lane is trying to create a source of genetic material so that they can use it for cloning lichens.
An entire species saved from extinction.
Seemingly there aren't enough lichens in the world, and he wants to remedy that.
Imagine our species immune to silver, and we're hiding. Every lichen under our command is powerful as you are.
Quint transforms into the lichen. Some of the fun things that I get to do is when I transform into him and come out of him is kind of trying to harness that energy and like just seeing what the hell it would feel like to transform from this monstrous creature back into Quint.
We wanted to take the performance of Chris and really embed his performance in the Uber so that we could see some of his movements and you could recognize it from the actor that you would have spent time with as a human being. We'd never done any mocap before in the Underworld pictures. We decided to bring Chris in and do some pretty intensive couple-day sessions with him just to try to pull out of him a performance that we could then use in the Uber. And also in many ways he helped us to figure out, just the basic actions for the creature.
We showed him some concept art, how big it was. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's me. And that made so much for him to see those images. And you can tell that he really uses that. He has this enormous creatures within him.
I heal instantly.
Basically, they've taken the genetic code from Eve. She is the future for us. That's kind of what informs Quint's motivation, It's down to survival now.
They're using silver nitrate gas. Bombs on all the floors. Subject 1. We need to evacuate.
Fine. He's trying to preserve the life of his own species. So in terms of his own species, he's quite noble, I suppose. But he's ruthless in his intention and doesn't care who he destroys to make that happen.
In Underworld 4, it's a strong parenthood theme, actually. It's not visible when you look at it, because you're going to see bam, bam, bam. But I think those kind of themes makes the film tight.
Celine has a daughter. Thomas and David in the coven, also father and son. So
there's a strong blood.
Maybe it's not that apparent when you see it, but we thought it was a nice theme to keep going, to make it extra interesting.
You came back for me. I said I would.
microphone's going to get warm by 12. Hello. So, Dan, should we then be thinking about getting another 4K then from the pipeline?
To the background. Ready, roll the video.
Play back, please.
You get it before she comes in, because she's, you see there, that one?
Yeah.
That thing, it looks like her kind of what she's seeing. When she stops there, you can transfer.
See Mark. See Mark. John, say when you're set. Set. Here we go. Ready. Okay. You good?
Yeah.
Here we go. Ready. And 3, 2, 1, action. Kate. Kate. Action. It seemed to increase. Hey, Mark.
Tell Kate not to look at the
2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1,
Reset, reset!
Move. Hey, stop. I'm cutting.
The adjustments. How was that? My friends were on.
3, 2, 1, go. Who was that on the control? Was that Joe? Good stuff, Joe.
Set drama.
Why is there a red button behind the camera? But you don't really understand it.
Right.
Lloyd! Oi! Oi! Lloyd! 3, 2, 1, go!
Go.
Okay, good. Keep rolling. Keep rolling.
Special effects, let's have drain the water interface. We're going to put camera around here.
That's a cut off.
And India, as they come around the corner and see what's going on.
You killed that hairy creature. Kill him.
3, 2, 1, bang. Here we go. Ready and action.
I hit me on the head.
You okay?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you guys. We're cutting. Let's check playback.
of all those shots.
You know. Russ? Have any bad lights on that?
Uno.
Uno.
At the moment, but it'll change.
Action.
Take her somewhere safe.
No.
Take her, go!
Specs ready?
Scott, are you good?
Camera set.
Okay, very quiet, please. Ready, and action.
I heard stories of the death dealers. I was told that they were a thing of the past, never to return. I'm glad they were wrong.
You know who I am?
Yeah.
You still love me.
You're a fighter. We could use more like you to help us.
And if it's a pool of blood on the floor, is that you as well?
Just start moving stuff. Okay, let's check with Polly first.
Yeah.
No, you can't because
You're already on the slush truck.
Was Michael Rowe.
One more time, please.
yeah, maybe just a hair heavier, and then they would have died down.
You draw four.
And then
You draw four.
Ready, and action camera.
Richard. Yeah, dude. That's cool. A marker. B marker.
Okay, stand by. Action. Okay.
Cut. Cut.
It's kind of good. Play back, please.
Check and play back.
Yeah, it's much less noticeable.
Three, two, one, Theo.
Excellent! Thank you. Alright! Guys, we just have to clear this corner here. We see that corner here, please. Go, go.
Alright, let's do what we're going to do.
Can we step guys, hang on.
Wide, please!
Lisa?
Yes.
This is going to see, we're going to see her ratio. No, yes. The first shot to do like that, like that. There's one shot and zero. And then we do so what you will do is her. Ready and action.
Put it back to sleep. I want everyone in this building searching for subject 2.
Hurry.
Max dose of halothane and fentanyl. Now. Put it back to sleep. I want everyone in this building searching for subject 2.
Hurry.
Yeah. Max dose of halothane and fentanyl. Now. Now.
One second. Set a loop. B mark.
Okay, very quiet, please. Rolling.
2, 1, drop.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I meant. Let me know if you want to stop it.
Just keep it going.
I can add some editing too.
No, that's fine.
Okay, you're going to go towards your head about 1.5 foot or 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now let me see you tilt your head up. Okay, set. And bite. And howl. Look. And then can we do a little tilt down on that look?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool. So it's reset. Biting. And howl. And look. One more.
One more.
3, 2, 1, go.
Baker 115, Lima, take 2, be only mark.
All right, everybody, we're rolling and we're set, and it's over to Todd. Here we go.
All right, on go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Ready, and 3, 2, 1, action! Cut!
Nice, man. Nice.
Baker, take 1, the only mark. Okay, guys, we're rolling and we're set. Here we go, everybody. Ready, and 3, 2, 1, action!
And to get the momentum to really get it, you have to just when you look at it.
Action.
And then put a little bit more body into it as if we're doing a take. Yeah, let's do that. That's better. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Action.
Okay, so you're seeing my hand.
They're made for it. Strong.
And action.
After today, you won't have to wait so long between injections.
Are you sure she's ready?
Estrogen levels high, intervals between menses holding steady. It's come of age. Everything's worked out just as we'd hoped. And you're the first proof of it. I'm proud of you, son.
3, 2, 1, go!
start with. Sorry.
It is crazy. These are like rabid fans of every comic book.
Did the sucker punch out of the girls like he's not gonna know what he's doing. And they were like same thing with
And they say that they're hoping that in the next few months or 6 months will be a cold shutdown. So that they will lose billions of dollars because of that company, but that's fine. But they can call it a...
Okay, so the thing is, you saw how she, stand up. So we see the black ones with the hands, and the other black ones with the feet.
Benji, can you put your feet back up there, Benji? Sit into it. How's that? You're down. And so we have a camera. Yes, John. Just don't plug in. That's it.
We would edit.
That's good form.
Gimpy form.
Action, Michael.
Ah, the human will. Admirable at times, but ultimately utterly pathetic. I was human once, you know.
What did it feel good to say that?
No, I like where it was yesterday in rehearsal.
Yeah, it was better than yesterday. I'm mediocre. Around,
Okay.
how desperate I was to remain mediocre.
You say that in the most beautiful way.
It's a good curse.
No good.
Yeah.
Good for first immersion. Yes.
Ah, the human will. Admirable at times, but ultimately utterly pathetic. I was human once, you know. How I clung to it. How desperately I wanted to remain mediocre. Your kind will never be as powerful, no matter how hard you try. There's just a natural order to these things. Even if I have to contrive it myself. Ah, the human will. Admirable at times, but ultimately, utterly pathetic.
And bang! 2 or more. Ready and action tape. And bang!
3, 2, 1, action! And go! Rich, okay? Yeah. Ready and action camera. And team. Okay, thank you. It's a little Theo. Very quiet now for this drawing. Quiet now. Got to bring up the ear noise if you need to. Here we go. Ready. And action. Perfect. Thank you. Cut it. And we're cut. Thank you. We are sharp all the way. As to how are sharps? Hey Stuart, how are the sharps?
The knife's done. You got it there. Nailed that one. You destroyed that thing. Probably 2 words, 2 cents. Right. And stuff like that, but I still would like you to, I'll show you the shot, just shot a little bit so you know what you're seeing. But I still want to have that thing, you know, I can't leave to say that while we're looking.
And action. Theo.
It will come back in numbers.
Action, Kate. Theo.
It will come back in numbers.
Action, Kate. Thank you. Action. just go to one right now. So, where's the dance dude?
Guys, here we go. Pictures up. Come back. No script. Apple 17, Apple, take 2. B camera marker. No slating A. Done. Ready and action, case. Rain and case.
Michael!
Thank you!
Scott? Scott?
You want to do shoes?
Oh, yeah, do you want to do feet because the shoes were wrong before?
Yeah.
Michael!
Great, perfect.
I wanted to be a stunt guy since I was a kid. So when I graduated from college, I moved to LA and became a stuntman.
And action.
My job is to create and design action. I will shoot it like we would in the movie, and I'll find the proper angles. Visually, you'll get the idea of what we're trying to accomplish.
You don't know what you're gonna do at work that day. Everything's like a surprise. You do something new every day, so it's never like the same old routine. I actually feel for a couple seconds that I don't have any wires on me at all.